Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. Today, we will spend some time focused on various aspects of our nest and rope acronym. We will focus on nutrition, less stress, more sleep, how we think, our relationships, but not just with people, but with food, avoiding toxins or pollutants in our food, our emotions, and making sure our life experiences serve us, and maybe a few extra surprises along the way. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Chef Amber. Now, Chef Amber is a wonderful chef who graduated from Auburn University with a degree in hotel and restaurant management. And she also got some culinary training from in Fort Collins, Colorado. She fell in love with the simplicity and passion of Southern Italian cuisine. Whenever I hear Southern, I get excited. After working with a well respected chef, and then she had the opportunity to come to Hermosa Beach, California, and to be the executive chef at a new restaurant in that area, Mediterraneo. This is where she discovered the deep healing powers of food. And after about 15 years as a chef, she realized she wasn't doing a great job with her personal self care. So, after spending some time at a detoxifying spiritual retreat center, she began to understand how food, that thing she loved to create, could be her medicine. She now works daily to bring knowledge to others and is intentional in helping people change their lives one bite at a time. Here's a nice quote from Chef Amber. I believe that our food nourishes us from the inside out. Our outer beauty, inner peace, and our physical, mental, and emotional health are all fueled by what we put into our bodies. I think we all can appreciate that quote, and we all want to welcome you, Amber, to Protecting Your Nest.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you. Your energy is something that I appreciate, and I like to be around people with a little bit of a positive energy. I think it does fill the room, and
Yeah.
it helps others to actually get that same energy from you. So let's get started. And as I think about this interaction, I think about all of those shows about becoming a chef, and
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of culinary themes out there these days. There may be somebody who's listening, maybe a young girl who is inspired by you and the work you're doing and maybe want to enter that field. So tell me a little bit about, what are the steps to become a chef, and maybe a few of the challenges you may have faced along the way.
Okay. So if there is someone that's listening that wants to become a chef, first of all, you've got to know in your soul that this is a passion of yours, because the restaurant business, it will chew you up and spit you out. Like, it is a hard business. It's the only business I've ever been in since I was 14. So what I would suggest to someone, if you've never worked in it, depending what your age is, if you're younger, you're like, oh, I want to be in the restaurant business. I want to be a chef. Go find a chef that you love, a restaurant that you love. See if you can apprentice or stage, which is an unpaid kind of couple week or maybe a month. See how you like it. Like, you'll probably start off chopping garlic or peeling onions or washing dishes, but if you want it, you'll do it. I think that the other avenue is find a culinary school that you want to go to. I do suggest working in a restaurant while going to culinary school. I've seen a lot of people come out of culinary school that have never worked in a restaurant before, and they're like, whoa, this is not what I expected. I did not go down the culinary route. I was in the restaurant business for years before I found a chef that I got to apprentice under in Colorado. Some of the challenges, well, honestly, they're long hours. You're on your feet. When you're starting out in the culinary business, you don't really make that much money. So that is a challenge. If you don't have any experience, it is a minimum wage kind of situation. Sometimes it's unpaid, depending how desperate and what the drive is to work for that chef. You've got to have a little bit of some thick skin. I think the restaurant business is changing now, and I could do a whole couple hours on that. Being a woman 25, 28 years ago, when I was going through my training, it was very difficult. Male dominated industry. I mean, I was the only woman in the kitchen and I got picked on. It was really hard. I mean, I would go home every night and cry and say I'm going to quit, but I wanted it so bad. I mean, I wanted it so bad, but it was hard. I mean, really hard. I don't run my kitchens with the yelling, screaming that we see on the shows, right? I used to be that type of chef. It's kitchens are it's a harder environment for sure. There's not a lot of sugarcoating and holding your hands. There's no crying in the restaurant business. So that's why I say you've got to know in your heart and soul that this is what you want, and go out there and get it. Yeah,
And once you become a chef, right?
yeah.
And you've had your kind of mentoring apprentice thing. So how do you go from that to having a restaurant? Are you still working for somebody or you're trying to go out and do your own restaurant? How does that next phase?
Yeah. So after I did my training in Colorado, I was asked to move to Mediterraneo or move to LA to open up Mediterraneo. I worked with a chef at the beginning, but then I ran that chef for 10 years as an executive chef. And it
Mm,
was an amazing
gotcha.
opportunity. So now I opened up, I have two restaurants. They're called the Source Café in Hermosa Beach and Manhattan Beach. And I opened up those restaurants 9 years ago. I opened up my first one, and then my second one in Manhattan, I opened up last July during COVID. So for me, I got to run a restaurant for 10 years. And then because of my rock bottom and my health crisis, I needed to have a restaurant where I could heal and nourish myself, but also other people. And so that is how the Source Cafe was born. But it's baby steps. You've really got to put in your time and your work in the restaurant business and then find a chef where you can really grow and move up with, and hopefully then build up that that confidence so you can break off on your own with a team that believes in you. Yeah.
Okay, it makes sense. It definitely sounds like it's less of a guarantee. Like when I went into medicine, it was like you do these certain types of training and you're pretty much going to be put into that
Mm.
role. But with this, it's a little bit more of a,
Oh yeah.
you got to kind of work your way towards it. So
Oh
but
yeah.
that's good to hear. And I could see why you started with make sure that's what you want to do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great thing, but the TV shows are a little misleading in
Yeah.
terms of they don't really explain this journey. So thank you for that. One
Yeah.
of the quotes that I found you or heard you say was that you don't know how bad you feel until you feel good, right? So it's almost like how do you know what's bad if you haven't felt good, right?
Mhm.
One of the things I've learned about my journey into wellness with nutrition is that you think you feel okay. It's just like when I put on glasses for the first time, I thought I could see okay, but then everything got brighter and clearer. So I want you to talk a little bit about some of the things that you struggled with. When you were feeling bad. I think right now you're feeling good, but
Yeah.
what type of health concerns did you have that really made you move into the direction of wellness?
Okay. So I had my health crash, rock bottom, slap in the face, spiritual awakening 10 years ago before I opened up Source. I was walking around inflamed, in pain. I had two torn hip labrums. I was depressed. I was bloated. I had brain fog. I was struggling with adrenal fatigue. I was masking my symptoms with drinking too much caffeine, alcohol, eating too much sugar. I was struggling with the sugar addiction. I was overweight. I mean, I had eczema. I would have acne. I was like, my body, I did not bloated, gassy, constipated, like did not feel good, but I would I would take some medicine or I would drink some more coffee or have a little bit of tequila or eat some sugar. And I would mask my symptoms. And so finally, when I had my rock bottom, I was like, I do not want to live like this. I don't want to feel like this. That's when I dove into my spiritual practices of meditation and I started visualizing. And then I started to say, okay, you know what, Amber, you've been abusing food for the last 3 decades. And part of my history too, Dr. Tony, is I have struggled with eating disorders and disordered eatings for the last 30 years. And so as a chef, I was this amazing chef, but I also was starving myself or restricting or binging or I was a mess. So finally I decided, you know what, I want to form a healthy relationship with food. I want to start to love and accept my body. I want to start to fuel and nourish my bodies with the right food. Food is here to heal and nourish and fuel our bodies. I want to stop abusing it. So that's when I woke up. And when I started to get rid of the sugar, the excess caffeine, the processed foods For me, I had to get rid of gluten because I was healing my adrenals, some dairy. I started to realize, oh my God, I have energy. I have mental clarity. The inflammation's falling from my body. I feel alive. I'm actually, because gut and mind are so much related, I'm starting to feel happier, confident. So I started to realize, whoa, I didn't realize how bad I felt walking around for 30 something years. Yeah.
Wow. And so you mentioned a couple of areas that resonate with me. As you know, I'm more of a low carb guy, and I know you don't like those labels, but so when I started avoiding certain foods, processed foods in particular, I've done much better, right? And it sounds like for you, dairy and gluten, and I know I've heard you talked about oils, refined oils. So my question is, I want to understand your philosophy about food and why you choose the foods you choose. And so how did you make those types of decisions and what got you to the point where you now know what to feed your
Yeah.
customers who come to your restaurants? And so how do you approach food decisions?
So this is a good question. This is a big question. So for me, I had to do a lot of trial and error of what works for my body. I mean, I'm an O blood type. So years ago, I was like, I'm going to be vegan. I have nothing to get a plant-based diet. I'm a proponent. In fact, 80% of my restaurants are plant-based, but for me, that doesn't work. Okay. I was trying to heal my adrenals, my hormones. I needed liver. I needed pasture raised meat. Then I was like, you know what? I've got a little autoimmune something going on, and I'm bloated. I'm going to let go of dairy and gluten. Let me start researching about gut health and gut mind connection. And so I think there's not one diet for everyone. I don't put a label on how I eat. It's taking me years to figure out what works for my body, and I do a lot of elimination diets. Maybe when somebody's starting out, like this week I'm not going to eat eggs and I'm going to introduce eggs next week. Oop, I feel like crap this week. Okay, well, then it's the eggs. People can play around. I don't go near GMOs and I don't go near processed food anymore. I mean, those are non-negotiables for me. I mean, the chemicals and preservatives that are sprayed on our food, like glyphosate, really scary. So for how I've learned to feed myself is definitely my restaurants, organic, GMO free. I also do not use, we kind of touched on oils. So I'm very passionate about using avocado, olive oil, and coconut oil. I also love ghee and tallow, but we don't use any canola oils or any seed oils in house because it does cause toxicity in the body. I'm probably one of the only restaurants that actually fries in avocado oil. It's like a huge deal. It's very expensive. There's a reason chefs don't do it. My Manhattan restaurant is gluten-free and dairy-free. We make all of our own breads. Most of them are keto paleo breads. I'm not a grain hater. Okay. Like I have organic grains. I have beautiful farro from Italy. Grains right now don't work for my body. I eat a primarily high protein, high fat diet with vegetables and a ton of fresh fruit. That works for me. But at my restaurants, I do have organic grains. We have to be careful with grains. I mean, if I can't get an organic grain, I know that that's probably been sprayed with glyphosate or something funky, and that's not coming in my restaurant. So, the way that my view of food is I have a high integrity when it comes to food of what I'm serving my guests. I'm not going to serve anything that I wouldn't eat. So going back to, I know there's like so many different directions I could go here, but I do think it's important what we pay attention of what we put in our body right now. And every little thing, I mean, we have to be so careful when you're going out to eat and where you're going to the Whole Foods bar, is there canola oil? Is there what's going on in the marinade of your chicken or of your eggs or your fish? So that alone can cause inflammation and all kinds of stuff, as you know, in the body. So I'm real passionate about educating and spreading that word and helping people pay attention to that.
Yeah, like all this resonates with me because I believe that you do have to listen to your body. In fact, many of us, even in the low carb community, ended up there because we actually started to listen to our body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think it's important that you do that and also recognize that there's no one size fits all, right?
There's not.
So I think anybody who is gonna either try a low carb or keto carnivore, which is kind of in the direction I lean, or vegan or vegetarian. You
Yeah.
listen to your body. And even when I was a vegetarian, I would eat certain things that would cause stomach upset. And the old version of Tony would say, well, you just tolerate it because it's good for you. It's going to get better. It's going to
Yeah.
get better. Well, it never got better. So I started listening to my body, and I started eating the things that didn't bother me. So let's not hate any food as you
Oh,
would. There's
yeah.
no need to hate.
Mm-mm.
But I think the bigger message that you're sharing is, let's eat real food, right?
Real
I was
food.
just having a conversation with a patient today, and we talked a little bit about, I think it was some type of pasta dish. And I said, well, let's just look at the label. And we looked at the label, and I said, this is enriched flour. You're not even really eating food.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna, so I like your message, and I just want to just say that out loud, that anybody listening to this, make sure you experiment. Now, if you eat a grain and you're diabetic and your sugar goes up, then that may not be good for you. If you eat a grain and it doesn't go up, then maybe you're metabolically able to tolerate that. So
Hmm.
I think the best experiment, whether you're using a continuous glucose monitor or whatever, just see what happens,
Yeah.
and then that'll be the best way to judge. So
I love that you said
but another thing that I heard you talk about, and we did a brief video we'll be sharing soon, and you talked about sexy, nourishing food that's gonna be good for what happens outside of the kitchen,
that.
unless you're really out there. So, talk a little bit about the connection between food and how it may improve intimacy in our bedrooms.
Yeah, so I do believe, like I spoke before, of what we put in our body matters. And when we're fueling our body with the right foods, for me, I'll speak personally. When I'm eating what really feels right and aligned for my body, I feel strong, healthy, energized, vibrant. I don't have brain fog. I feel sexy, confident. And there's certain foods that help increase the libido. But, my libido, if you're fueling yourself with processed food and over caffeinating yourself, and, clients will come in and they're like, oh my God, I'm just so tired and I have brain fog, and, my husband and the libido. And it's like, yeah, the diet, y'all, you gotta this is our vessel. This is our only vessel, and it's a temple, and this is our temple in this lifetime. So feed it like a king or a queen. I always say that. And from that, it's going to emanate from you, that energy, and feel so good. And from that, that is going to increase your vitality, your libido. And I think too, there's foods like avocado and pomegranates and pumpkin seeds and oysters and figs that all have aphrodisiac qualities or to help increase sexual desirability, like avocados, like the Aztecs believe.
Yeah, and it's almost like, you know, when I heard you speak when I was doing research, it's like you have this food higher purpose thing going. Like for most people it's just energy. Some people it's pleasure because they enjoy eating. But for you it's like so much bigger. It's like, so just talk a little bit about this role that food plays in your life. It just feels like it's a bigger deal than most people. So
It is a big deal. Well, like I shared earlier, I've used food for 30 years. And so I had, a very poor and unhealthy emotional relationship with food. So now, as I've been healing my relationship with food, and I put so much intention into the food that I make and create. And I do this practice now where I sit down and I try to take a moment and bless my food, even if it's 5 or 10 seconds, give gratitude, put energy in the food. And that food then enters my body. And now I'm vibrating with this food. And, the food is organic or it's pasture raised, and I know it's clean, and I'm honoring the animal or the vegetable that I'm eating it. And when I know I'm fueling myself, I know that I'm loving the way I feed myself, is like my mantra this year. I want to love the way I feed myself, and I want to eat with joy. And that feels so yummy because I know then that I'm honoring myself. I feel confident. I'm in alignment with my body, and I'm not abusing food or numbing with food.
I
So,
like that.
yeah.
And what I like about it is that, so if we're more plant-based, you definitely can feel good about that. But if you're eating animals, how we raise those animals
Yeah,
matter, right?
so important.
And I think that that's really important. So I really appreciate that because you do feel different
Yeah,
about the food. It's
huge.
just like, well, if you cook the food, you feel different about it than if you didn't cook the food.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for family, it feels different. So I think all of those things resonate with me. So my nest talks about nutrition, but tucked inside that nutrition is intermittent fasting. So, how big of a role has intermittent fasting played in your life as well?
So I love intermittent fasting. If anyone's listening that struggles with disordered eating or an eating disorder, I definitely want to say, check with your nutritionist, your doctor. There's a lot of debate about because I've had people come and kind of attack me saying, "Whoa, chef, I can't believe you're a fan of intermittent fasting. You've struggled with eating disorder and disordered eating," because I used to abuse intermittent fasting. I used to use intermittent fasting, be like, "Oh no, I'm not starving myself. I'm just intermittent fasting. It's healthy." No, I was starving myself. I was eating for like 2 hours a day. No, y'all, I'm just intermittent fasting. No, I was abusing it and I was using it as a quick fix mentality and as a diet. If you're using it for that reason, do not intermittent fast. It will backfire and you'll go into some other kind of unhealthy eating. For me now, I love a good 16-hour fast. For me, it happens organically. I'm not psycho about it, meaning I used to have to eat my dinner by 3, and if I ate at 3:01, I'd freak out because I needed to eat my breakfast at 8 or 9. No, it's organic. Today, I got up, I was hungrier, I knew I was going to have a heavy workout. You know what? I ate my eggs and my bison for breakfast. But now I like to eat a 4 or 5 o'clock dinner, and I eat breakfast naturally around 8 or 9, which gives me a nice 16-hour window. I feel like for me, it keeps my mental health on point. I have energy, helps with my inflammation, bloating, elimination. So I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. I think that it's so individualized. Some people do it for 12 hours, some people do it for 20. And just my advice is don't do it for the wrong reasons. Don't do it for a quick fix to lose that quick 10, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, because then what are you going to lose the 20 pounds and go back to your regular lifestyle and then gain back 30? Okay. Cause I've seen that with my clients also. So, I think I love it. Like, I think it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a game changer. Today, we recorded this podcast at 3 p.m. ish, and at least Chicago time. I know you're in sunny California. We're finally starting to get some warm weather.
Right.
It's taken forever. So I had a 12 o'clock meeting, and I had a 1 o'clock meeting, and I had a 2 o'clock meeting, and I had a 3 o'clock podcast. And so I haven't eaten yet, but I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
That's the so for people, and this is not for everybody, but for those who become keto adaptive, fat adaptive, whatever, and you can use fat fuel, you're going to feel so much better, and the mental clarity is there, so that when you're recording a podcast, you can actually have some mental clarity. And I know you're going to probably be running back to your restaurant. I'm going to be, doing some work on my computer, and I want to have mental clarity to do those things. So I really think that for those who haven't tried it, it's cheap, it's convenient, it's actually pretty easy to just skip a meal, right?
It's
So I'm
cheap
big,
and
big
easy for sure.
right, that's right. So big fan, big fan. So that's so we've covered the N, we got the nutrition and the intermittent fasting. We'll skip the E and we'll go to the S for stress and sleep. So I know that that's important for me. It's probably important for you. So talk a little bit about how stress reduction and sleep have impacted your life.
Okay. So this is huge for me. I love this topic. So I always think of health as holistic. So when somebody says, "Ooh, are you healthy?" or "What does health mean to you?" It's not just what we put in our bodies, what we eat, the water we drink, we exercise. If I'm eating a perfect diet, whatever that means for me, but my stress is a level 10 and I'm not sleeping, my cortisol's through the roof. I'm going to tell you, when I opened up my restaurant during COVID last year in July in Manhattan Beach, whew, I'm going to give you a great example. My diet was on point. I was drinking water. I was exercising. My stress was at 1,000, and my sleep was erratic. It was awful, and I was so puffy. I had inflammation, brain fog. I was bloated. I know that I was gaining weight from the cortisol, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, your diet's so great, and you're so healthy, chef." And it's like, yeah, but how is your sleep and how is your stress? So that is where meditation helps ground my butt, calms me down, lowers my stress levels. Also, stress affects our glucose levels, and I always need to watch that. And also, lack of sleep affects our glucose levels, and I don't want to have insulin resistance or any of that stuff, because as I age, coming into 45 years young next week, my metabolism is slowed down, and all that stuff matters. And I think that, oh man, when I go away and I can sleep, literally sleep and meditate and eat, I actually see the most benefits in my body. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great to get sleep. It's so different when you don't get sleep and then you try to have all of those meetings I just
Yeah.
described. There's no way in the world you're going to be effective. And I
Yeah.
know you have employees, you're trying to lead people, you're trying to inspire people, and having a leader in front of you who is sleep deprived is not going to go very well. So that's good to hear. And so let's talk about the T in the nest. That's, dealing with how we think. I just did some great interviews about trauma, and I'll actually be releasing a trauma low carb corner article with the diet doctor literally the same day that this episode comes out. So for those who want to learn more about trauma, check out that previous podcast episode, but also check out the article. But for today, how we think, right? You just kind of talked a little bit about how it's like, food's really a little bit more than just nutrition. And it's something that's, how you think, it's spiritual almost. And so, rather my listeners are, guided by God, the universe, or something else, what role does faith and prayer and you talked a little bit about visualization. Talk a little bit more about the role that those things play in keeping us healthy.
Okay, I love this. So prayer is part of my morning routine. I'll start with my meditation, then I go through my prayers, and then I'll do a gratitude list, and then I'll start to visualize how I want my day. And for me, why it's so important is, first of all, it sets my day up for success, and it keeps me in faith. So I say God, and after I pray and I meditate and I take that time in the morning for myself, it keeps me connected to my inner being and God. And honestly, it's hard to be in faith and fear at the same time. So I decide every morning I wake up, I'm going to be in faith today, even if I have to fake it till I make it. But the prayer helps with that. And it keeps me optimistic, knowing like, you know what, Amber, trust the mystery of life and God's got me. Like, I need to stay. I love the saying, God's in the details, like stay out of the details. And that's where really faith for me comes in. I mean, opening up a restaurant in COVID, my only option was faith. That was it. I had a restaurant that was closing. I was opening. It was cray
Mm.
cray. And the only option was for me to stay in faith. And people would say, oh, how are you so optimistic when everything's like burning down around you? And I was like, because I know God's got me. I know I'm going to be okay. My other option would be to go grab a box of cookies and a bottle of tequila and go bury my head in the sand and live in fear and a pessimistic, anxious, depressed state. So I'm going to choose faith. And that is why I meditate and visualize and journal and pray. And sometimes I'll pull over on the side of the road and be like, oh God, I'm having a hard day today. Like, let's do this. Like, let me get connected to myself, my wise goddess, my inner being. Let me put my feet on Mother Earth, get connected to Mother Earth, and know that I've got this and I'm always going to be okay.
Yeah. And I was thinking about your courage to do what you did in a pandemic. But I remember one of the motivational speakers I listen to often is Jim Rohn, and he said something that was so funny to me. He told the story of the two salesmen, and the first salesman said, "My God, it's raining outside. What a horrible day to make a sale," right? And then the second one said, "Oh my God, it's raining outside. There won't be any salespeople out. What a great day to make a sale."
I
So
love
it's like, it's all
that.
about perspective, right? So
Yeah.
you may have, I started this podcast during the pandemic because things slowed down. So I could have just sat there and spent time on Twitter, going back and
Yeah.
forth about low carb. But instead, I took some time to learn how to make a podcast. So now this is episode 49. Think about that. So we have to look at the world through the right lens, and we
Yeah.
will accomplish quite a bit. So, and speaking of videos and things like that, I just released a video on YouTube where I feature Roderick Lambert. He's a life coach, and we talked about the benefits of having a life coach. I have a life coach. I think you have a life
I
coach.
do.
So tell me a little bit about how coaching has affected your life.
Okay, well, I could talk about this for days. So I wrote in my book that a whole section about I don't believe we can do life alone, meaning I have a whole team of intuitive therapists and psychics and mentors. And so my coach right now, he is my spiritual coach slash healer mentor. His name is Christopher Lee Maher. I've been with him for 2 years, and he's an ex-Navy SEAL that healed his body. His backstory is amazing, but what he specializes in is removing trauma and stress and tension from the body. And it's a lot of body work and talk therapy. And my life is completely changed. It's opened up in ways like I don't even have time to talk about. My relationships are better. I'm a better person. I'm a better leader. I'm a better sister, a better daughter. I'm more authentic. I create healthy boundaries. It helps me stay optimistic. I have energy. I'm happy. And it's actually he's helping me through generational trauma that we're removing from my body to help heal this relationship with food, because that's a whole big piece. So that is, I'm a big fan of a coach. Again, I love therapy. I think there's a stigma around therapy. Everybody thinks we have to be so messed up to have a therapist or a coach or a mentor. Absolutely not. Even the best coaches in the world have their coaches. It's a way to stay tethered. And it's armor, and it's a tool in my pocket that I keep. And yes, it's an investment, and everyone can't afford it. And it's a luxury for sure to have a coach, but it is something that I don't take for granted. It's
And
amazing.
it may be one of the best investments you can make because, we got to think about, well, what do we spend our money on,
That's the
right?
thing. Yeah.
So it's so I think that you're right. Shout out to Christopher, your
Yeah.
coach. And I might as well do a shout out to Bill, my coach. And we really appreciate the value that they're adding to our lives. And for anybody listening, definitely look into the ideal of doing that and maybe think about something that's not adding value to your life that you can remove. And you take those resources and you use it to have somebody to help guide you. So thank you for sharing Christopher with us. And as we go from the nest to the rope, I want to kind of go to the P. The P in the rope talks about avoiding pollutants. And we've talked a little bit about that already because for you, a pollutant is dairy. For
Mm-hmm.
you, a pollutant is gluten.
Yeah.
And for you, and I think for most of us, processed oils. And again, for those who are listening, I use Boca, and I'll say butter, not ideally grass fed, and
Yeah.
or ghee, and then we use olive oil, and we use coconut oil and avocado oil. So that's my mnemonic, and it means Spanish. It means mouth in Spanish. So Boca, to remind us which oils are not processed but are just cold pressed and are better for us. But those are some pollutants, and then you have others. So when you think about your role, you've touched on this already, but what other pollutants do you try to avoid when you're making those great recipes in your book, in your restaurant? What other things should our listeners be thinking about so they won't put these pollutants in their body?
Yeah, I think we have to be really careful with grains. Really pay attention to where your meat is coming from, because certain farm raised fish or factory farmed poultry and beef can be loaded with antibiotics. It's super, super scary. I mean, dairy, if you eat dairy, be very careful with the pollutants that are injected into dairy. I believe it causes a tremendous amount of gut disruption. Other pollutants, I mean, people don't realize that some berries and stone fruit are sprayed with 12 different types of pesticides. And unfortunately, in corn and soy, the berry family, I mean, those are some of the top 5 dirty potatoes, top 5 GMOs. And we don't know what's in that food. And,
That's right.
glyphosate, it came out last year, 2020, really heavily, but, it causes so much health problems and
Yeah.
cancer. It's
Yeah.
scary. There's a reason our country is sick. I mean, I went to Europe a couple months ago, actually, to do training with Christopher and a group. And we actually ate some grain over there, and I ate some things that I don't usually eat. You know what? I felt amazing
Yeah.
because we're allowed 175 preservatives and chemicals in our food that it's illegal in Europe. And I also stay away from pollutants when I'm washing my vegetables. I'll wash my vegetables in apple cider vinegar. Like, be careful. Don't
Right.
get just like a regular veggie wash, right? You can use grapeseed oil so it's that kind of stuff. I mean, it's unfortunate in our country, and I could go off on a whole rampage about it,
No, but
but yeah,
that's helpful. I mean, that tells you a lot because if they do studies about food and they're not, you know, grown the right way, then
yeah,
maybe those studies are not valid. So I think there's so many nuances to when we make decisions about nutrition. You have to really ask a lot of questions
you
about,
do.
well, how was it grown and what did
Yeah,
they. So all of that stuff is really important. So I appreciate that. And maybe I'll be taking a trip now that the pandemic's
yeah.
starting to fade a little bit. I'll go over there and try some of these things. So now I want to go a little off the path a little bit because I heard you talk a little bit about astrology, right? And I know we shared before we started that we're both Geminis, so we're going to be having some birthdays. In fact, I'll be on a trip for my birthday, and I'm excited about that. And I was actually listening to one of your podcast recordings with another host, and you mentioned a Taurus, which was interesting because that was my wife's sign. So it sounds like you have some insights about astrology. I have no clue about astrology, by the way. So this is new to me, but I thought it would be fun to just hear you talk a little bit about just your knowledge about zodiac signs or just your general knowledge about how does astrology play a role in your life.
Okay. I love this topic. It is a little, I love this topic. Yeah. So we're both Geminis. So right now we're going through something called Mercury in retrograde. A lot of people don't believe in it, but Geminis are ruled by the planet Mercury. So I was laughing earlier when we were starting, stuff was falling, the electronics. I couldn't figure out how to download Google. Like, all my business partners would be like, like, stay away from electronics during Mercury in retrograde. Everything in my restaurant will break. Like, I can barely make a phone call, communication. So I love when Mercury comes because as a Gemini, we're so fast. We've got the twins, and there's always 10 plates spinning in the air. This is a very creative time for us. We can actually have great communication besides when Mercury's in retrograde. We have to be really careful and really slow down. But I used to hire not for the signs, but I would walk into my kitchen and be like, oh my God, I have 10 Virgo males. This isn't going to work. And I know that I needed to we need to put some other energy in there. So it's very, very interesting. I also love working with astrology because I know certain people's character traits, and I know that that's just how they are. Like, that's okay. And so it leads to more acceptance. So that's really profound. I also know that my communication with another Gemini is going to be amazing, and it might be a little trickier with a Scorpio. We might have to even go a little slower. So I love that. I also play with the work of human design, which is phenomenal. If you're listening or you don't know about it, you can go to jovialarchive.com and put in your time of birth and figure out your human design. It's based on the time and place you were born. It's very scientific, and it's not astrology, but it's in the astrology world. And I actually live my life now around the human design world. Like, it's huge. And like, when there's a full moon and a half moon or a new moon, I know what to watch out for according to what moon and because of my sign. So, I mean, I love it. It's really important and it's profound. And I've had a lot of ex-boyfriends who are like, "Oh, that's woo woo. That doesn't make sense." It's like, no, y'all, this is science. This is the planets and stars. Like, it's not made up. It's real. And so, yeah, I get readings probably every quarter to stay tethered, to see what's going on in my chart. So it's really awesome. Yeah.
When you're a chronic learner like me,
Yeah.
you're always trying to figure out what the next thing is.
Yeah.
And like I haven't done a deep dive into blood types. I haven't done a deep dive into astrology. So those are things that I think in order to judge something, I think it's important that you at least look into it,
Yeah.
get a little
Yeah.
science and and then after you do that, you can make an opinion. But most people are just scratching the surface. What's
I know.
really inspiring about what you've shared is, when I met my coach, one of the first things he did was to figure out what kind of personality I was, right? And then he talked about the importance of how you need to know the personalities of others. Now, I had no clue that astrology would really help. It makes sense
Yeah.
logically. But I think understanding the people you're married to, the kids you have,
Oh,
the
yeah.
people you work with, the people
Huge.
that you help lead, it would be so much easier, I would imagine, if
It
you
is.
knew who they were.
Yeah.
So
Game
that
changer.
just makes sense to me.
It's amazing. I have
Yes.
all of my employees' birthdays, all of them. I know all of them. It's amazing. And when they were hired, I'm like, I know this might be weird, but I need to know what time you're born.
Wow. You're killing me with
I
that.
need to
So,
because now I know how to communicate and I know what okay, that's their personality trait. It helps with acceptance and yeah, it's really good.
wow. Okay. Well, all those people in your nest, I guess you're trying to help protect them by getting to know them. So that's very, very interesting. What about, I've heard you use terms like vibration, so, again, astrology was pushing the envelope, but vibration is pushing it even further. So talk a little bit about what vibration means to you. What does that mean?
Oh, vibration. I love this. So, vibration for me is when I'm feeling plugged in, tuned in, turned on, not turned on inside, but turned on for myself, feeling embodied, electric, magnetic. And I'm really feeling grounded, but also feeling connected to source energy, God, universe, and connected to myself. And if I can vibrate with that frequency and that energy, I'm creative. I'm on fire. I'm unstoppable. I mean, talk about feeling like a superwoman. Like when I have that vibration, after I work with Christopher's, I'll leave and I'm like, oh, I'm Wonder Woman. I feel amazing. And when I talk about high vibrational food is food that is especially raw food that we might soak and sprout and it's organic and we're putting lots of love and intention into the way that we're making it. And then once we eat that food, I mean, that is going to add vibration in our body. I mean, that's where the glow emanates from our body also. So vibration has a couple different meanings for me, but it's definitely feeling plugged in and electric. Yeah.
That's cool. And even as you are describing that, I'm visualizing what you're saying. So I'm assuming that this ideal of how you visualize things is similar in
Yeah.
that it just takes it to another level.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And then I'll picture my feet on Mother Earth and I'll start from the bottom of all my chakras and see light coming all the way up my body, all the way up through the crown of my head, and then vice versa, all the way down, and just soaking it all in, like getting tuned, getting tuned up. Yeah. It's so good.
That is so cool. One of my favorite previous guests was Naveen Hitiarachi, who was a trainer for the Washington Wizards, right? And what I was thinking about when I thought about you is that you are big on different hacks. I mean, I've heard you talk about sauna and red light therapy and things like that. So, talk a little bit about some of the things you've incorporated into your life that has enhanced it that maybe you weren't doing prior to taking this journey.
Okay, awesome. So I'm a big biohacker. So I have a lot of tools in my house. I have an infrared sauna that I invested in a couple years ago. I have a salt rock in there. It's a salt rock light. So I have salt rocks actually in my office that help reduce radiation, absorb radiation. Red light therapy. I mean, I think it will be more common in a couple years, but red light therapy, I have a small one. I'm actually about to invest in the whole body red light. I started using red light therapy and near infrared therapy to heal my thyroid. I'd put it on my thyroid every day. I would help with my menstrual cramps. If I twisted my ankle, I'd put it on my ankle because I'm always on my feet. So red light therapy, I would do it on the top of my head for one of the points before I went to bed. I also have a vitamin D light in my house that's really awesome. And I have I have a PEMF mat in my house also. So, it's all these things that I've started to invest in over the years. I have a mask I wear that I love to keep my collagen boost and no wrinkles and
Mhm.
feel rejuvenated. It's red and blue light. So these have all had a profound impact on my health. So it keeps me in this holistic lifestyle. Yeah.
It
And out of
just
pain.
sounds like, yeah, I mean, I mean, I think about the things you're doing. You're protecting your nest. You're doing a lot of the themes there, and you're doing these hacks, and some of these hacks are not just kind of making you better, but they help you identify what's wrong. It's going to help you to make what's not good better. It's just a lot of things, and you clearly are a learner because you have to figure these things out, and maybe your coach mentions something, or you'll listen to a great podcast and somebody will mention something. So I think that it's like important that we all are continuous learners. And speaking of learning, in a way, when people go to your restaurant, they're learning because they're thinking about things like avocado oil when the other restaurants are.
Yeah.
And when you're an author, you're teaching and you're sharing messages that help people learn. So if I were to go to your restaurant or even purchase your book, what will I expect to find? I mean, what messages are you sharing in those two resources to help people become better?
Yeah. So when you come into my restaurant, I mean, you're immediately going to feel amazing when you leave because everything that's going to be put into your body is high vibrational organic food. So, and it's also showing that you don't have to be deprived and that food can be delicious and beautiful and sexy. I mean, I have a fried chicken sandwich, which doesn't sound healthy, but it's fried in avocado oil. It's battered in coconut milk, right? It makes buttermilks out of coconut milk. I fried in avocado oil, and then we make a paleo keto bun, right? Bam. I mean, not a lot of people can eat that. I mean, there's so many biscuits and other things they're so healthy. So you're going to feel amazing when you leave my restaurant, and know when you read my book, Sexy Nourishing Food, that the message in there is not everybody, like we spoke of earlier, pay attention to what you put in your body. We're all different. Don't follow a certain type of diet, but knowing that it's time to start eliminating the processed foods and the foods that make you feel like crap. Like the time really is now. That's my overall message because you read at the beginning, one of my intentions is to make a paradigm shift in the world through food. Like I really want to make this shift. And you'll also learn by reading Hungry, Why I Effing Eat. That is about my dynamic emotional relationship with food. So when you read that book, it's going to help you form a healthy relationship with food, learn to love the way you feed yourself, eat with joy, and then love and accept your body. And that, you'll feel all those things too when you're eating at my restaurants. Yeah.
And you said bam after you said coconut milk. First of all, I love that. I never tried coconut milk as batter. That's cool.
Yeah.
So that may be something because I tell people you don't really need batter. You can just fry it. It's going to have a crust, but it would be nice to make it a little thicker. So I'm going to
Yeah.
put that is that in your new book?
It's not in my new book. It will be in my second one, but it's a
Got you.
coconut
Okay,
milk, apple
that'll work.
cider vinegar. Yeah. And then you can really quick, you can mix a little bit of coconut milk with apple cider vinegar to make the fake buttermilk, right? Then you soak the chicken in it and then make your dredge for your flour. You can get almond flour or coconut flour, put some spices in there, batter it up and fry it. Yeah. That's a quick version.
I'm definitely going to check that out because there's some folk in my house like some fried chicken. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I love it. Well, that's awesome. So thank you for that. And I guess as we're kind of getting to wrap up time, I want to touch on your nest and rope thoughts. So as you know, nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, how you think, relationships, avoiding organisms and pollutants, making sure your emotions and your life experiences serve you. So when you think about those types of thoughts, what do you think you're going to be focused on over the next year to help you achieve your ideal state?
Okay, I'm definitely the first thing that comes to mind is still focusing on my sleep and stress because all of us, we're so used to walking around in fight or flight. At least I am. I mean, most Americans, we're so used to the grind and wearing that work as a badge of honor. So for me, watching my stress, which will then help my sleep, but then also my work-life balance. I think that the balance goes into using my voice, saying no, creating those boundaries to create that life that I really want, and taking more time off. So that's for me. It's balance for me. I can throw that out the window really quickly if I get too wound up with work, and then all of a sudden there's a 14-hour day that leads into another 14-hour day, and then my sleep and stress, and it's probably going to affect my food. Let's get real, and then I'm not going to exercise, and then it's like my nest is not protected.
Right. And if we're going to inspire other people, we have to
We do.
live what we
We
talk
do.
about. And,
Yeah.
the irony is that the more efficient and successful you are, and, you actually end up adding more. So we have
Yeah.
to learn to say no to some things. And those are the types of things I'll be sharing and discussing with my coach. I'm sure you'll be doing the same.
Yeah.
So perfect. So thank you for that. And then I guess final thoughts, and how can people get the wonderful books that you have out and coming out, and also maybe be a little clear about where your restaurant is, just in case we end up in a little
Perfect.
sunny California.
Yeah. Perfect. So in Southern California, Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach, the Source Café. So if you're in the area, please come and say hi. And then I have a website, chefamber.com, and I have a bunch of tools and tips for holistic living. I have a bunch of healthy, beautiful, sexy recipes. I have a cooking class show series on there that you can download and watch. I'm on YouTube, which is Chef Amber LA. And on Instagram and Facebook, I'm Chef Amber LA, and I'm always posting reels and videos and recipes and tips. And I talk about everything from sleep to colonics to enemas to sexual health to, all of it. My book, so actually Hungry, Why I Effing Eat, it got a little delayed. So it's coming out in August.
Okay.
And if you join me on Chef Amber LA, I'll start to do pre-orders, and that book's coming out about my relationship with food. And I'm very honest and raw and vulnerable in there. There's not some pretty parts, but it's going to help a lot of people. I know it. And then my cookbook will be out late fall, Sexy Nourishing Food to Fuel Your Mind, Body, and Soul. And that is 80% plant-based, gluten-free, dairy-free, and to give a lot of substitutes. I have a section in there that's wild bison, fish, and eggs. So it's for everyone, meat and plant eaters.
There you go. And again, shout out to all those different dietary approaches. And although I am low carb for the most part, I'm really about metabolic health.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
what I've learned is that metabolic health can be achieved in multiple ways. I know in the community I serve, I got to really push them away from starch, sugar, and
Yeah.
too many grains. And sometimes they just can't afford the better grain. So I think we
Yeah.
struggle in that regard. But I appreciate all you've shared, your energy, just don't change who you are, please.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And two Geminis doing a shout out to each other. And
Exactly.
for all the other signs, we all all right, but we're going to do the Gemini thing
Yeah,
today.
exactly.
So I'll wrap up with a few final words. Today, we have some additional verification that food can be medicine. Today, I'm really hoping that Chef Amber's message of healing will inspire you to use food as a tool to not only heal, but to inspire, motivate, and visualize all you have hoped for in your life, like a coach. And that's Christopher and Bill. I hope this conversation will help guide you towards a lifestyle that serves you, one that supports you on your journey for the life you have always wanted, and more importantly, to fulfill your life purpose. So, if you know anybody that needs to hear this message, make sure to share this episode with them. And as I always say, until we meet again, be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest. And thank you again for being here today.
Thank you for having me.